Rome, dawn, a city of ancient stone waking up before the tourists arrive. And somewhere in it, a princess is asleep on a public bench. She does not know who found her. She does not know he is a reporter. She does not know he has already cut a deal with his editor for the story of the century, and she has no idea the day she is about to have will be the only free day of her entire life. Roman Holiday, 1953, directed by William Wyler, starring Audrey Hepburn as Princess Anne, Gregory Peck as Joe Bradley, and Eddie Albert as Irving. Shot not on a Hollywood soundstage, but in the actual streets of Rome, at the actual Spanish Steps, at the actual mouth of truth. But the real writer spent production hiding in Mexico. 3 directors walked away before it got made. Cary Grant read the script and ran. And the ending, you know, is not the ending the film was built to deliver. That secret is fact 1. We get there at the end. 20 facts, counting down. Fact 20. Roman Holiday was the first Hollywood film ever shot and processed entirely in Italy. In 1952, filming a major studio picture on location in Europe was almost unheard of. Paramount wanted a backlot. Wyler refused. He insisted it had to be Rome or nothing. The studio agreed, but cut the budget, which meant black and white instead of Technicolor and an unknown actress instead of an established star. Wyler took that deal. Princess Anne walks past the Trevi Fountain at night. Joe and Anne race through traffic on the Vespa with the Colosseum behind them. Anne eats gelato on the Spanish Steps. None of those shots could have been faked. Wyler knew it before he left California. Fact 19. Paramount's real reason for filming in Rome was frozen money they could not get out of Italy. The studio had funds locked in Italian bank accounts due to post-war financial restrictions and could not transfer them back to America. Filming in Italy was the only legal way to spend that money. What looked like a bold artistic decision was also a financial workaround. Princess Anne steps out of the embassy and onto a real Roman street. Joe lives in a real apartment on Via Margutta. The authenticity that makes the film breathe was, in part, an accident of international banking law. Fact 18. 3 directors owned the project before Wyler made it. Roman Holiday passed through 3 sets of hands before Wyler touched it. Dalton Trumbo sold the original story to Frank Capra's company in 1949. Capra planned to cast Cary Grant and Elizabeth Taylor in a variation on his own classic, It Happened One Night. But his company ran out of money and sold the property to Paramount. When Capra discovered a blacklisted writer was behind the script, he withdrew. Director George Stevens inherited it next and declined to pursue it. Only then did Wyler step in. By the time Princess Anne woke up on Joe's couch, this story had been bought, sold, and abandoned 3 times in 5 years. Fact 17. The writer who created the film lived in exile in Mexico and could not put his name on it. Dalton Trumbo wrote Roman Holiday while in self-imposed exile in Mexico City as a member of the Hollywood 10, a group who refused to testify before Congress about alleged communist ties. Blacklisted and unable to sell work under his own name, Trumbo asked his friend Ian McClellan Hunter to front for him and take the credit. Hunter accepted the Oscar at the 1954 ceremony and sent the $50,000 prize to Trumbo in Mexico. Trumbo's daughter, Mitzi, later described watching the ceremony on television with her family. They saw the film win. They could not tell anyone her father had written it. Fact 16. Frank Capra quit the moment he found out who really wrote the script. Capra had owned Roman Holiday and developed it. When he discovered the script came from blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo using a front, he walked away. The McCarthy era made working with blacklisted writers professionally dangerous, and Capra would not take the risk. Wyler had no such hesitation and stepped in. Capra's version, with Cary Grant chasing a princess through Rome, was never made. What got made instead was better. Fact 15. Cary Grant turned the film down because he knew Hepburn would overshadow any co-star. The role of Joe Bradley was written with Grant in mind. Grant read the script and declined. He publicly cited being too old for a 23-year-old co-star. He was 49. But people who knew him said the real reason was simpler. Grant saw that whoever played Joe would be outshone by the girl, regardless of their star power. He was right. A decade later, he made a film opposite Hepburn anyway, the 1963 thriller Charade, and still worried about the age gap. Joe Bradley went to Peck. Peck was fine, being outshone. Fact 14. Gregory Peck called his agent during filming and demanded Hepburn's name go above the title. Peck was the established star. Hepburn was unknown. The billing as originally structured reflected that. Peck's name first. But a few weeks into production, Peck called his agent and told him to get Hepburn's name moved above the title alongside his. He said she was going to win an Academy Award, and it would be embarrassing if she did not have equal billing when it happened. The studio adjusted the titles. Hepburn won the Oscar for Best Actress at the 1954 ceremony. She was so overwhelmed that she kissed Academy President Jean Hersholt on the mouth instead of the cheek. Then she left the statue in the ladies' room and had to run back to retrieve it before the photographers outside could notice. Fact 13. Hepburn's screen test kept rolling after the director called cut, and that footage got her the role. When Hepburn auditioned for Princess Anne, the cameraman was quietly instructed to keep rolling after Wyler called cut. Several minutes of completely unguarded Hepburn were captured. She relaxed, looked into the lens, joked with the crew, entirely unaware the camera was still on. That footage, combined with a candid interview, is what convinced Wyler. Acting, looks, and personality, he said afterward. Princess Anne blinks awake in Joe's apartment and you see it immediately. The quality that secret footage caught first. Fact 12. Paramount had to cut a deal with the British government before releasing the film. The studio was required to ensure Hepburn's character could not be identified as a British royal. Wyler added a scene to make Princess Anne's nationality deliberately vague. The country is never named in the film. The embassy is generic. The flag is unidentifiable. Princess Anne walks through the press conference greeting journalists one by one, and it is impossible to place her anywhere real. The scene existed for legal reasons and ended up serving the story. A princess from nowhere belongs to everyone. Fact 11. A real royal scandal in Britain made the film a runaway hit there. When Roman Holiday opened in the United Kingdom in late 1953, it landed alongside a story the British public could not stop following. Princess Margaret was in love with group captain Peter Townsend, a commoner and a divorced man. The establishment was pressuring her to end it. The parallel was unmissable. Anne chooses duty over love. Margaret was being told to do the same. Film critic Alexander Walker wrote that no studio could have bought such publicity. Margaret renounced Townsend in 1955. Princess Anne had already shown audiences exactly what that choice looks like. Fact 10. The Mouth of Truth scene was a prank Gregory Peck pulled on Hepburn without warning. The ancient stone carving known as the Mouth of Truth sits at the entrance of a church on the banks of the Tiber. Legend says it bites off the hand of anyone who lies. Joe puts his hand into the mouth. Anne watches nervously. Joe yanks his arm back, sleeve empty, hand apparently gone. Anne screams, then dissolves into laughter. None of that was scripted. Peck had seen comedian Red Skelton perform a similar bit and suggested it to Wyler, who told him to go ahead but not to warn Hepburn. The crew filmed it in a single take. Her scream is real. Her laughter immediately after is real. The scene became one of the most replicated moments in romantic cinema and exists entirely because one actor decided to frighten his co-star in front of a camera. Fact 9. William Wyler put his own daughters in the film, and almost no one noticed. There is a scene where Joe tries to grab the camera from a schoolgirl in the street. The girl with the camera is Wyler's daughter, Catherine. The girl beside her who calls for the teacher is his other daughter, Melanie. Both appear on screen for only a few seconds. Wyler made no announcement about the cameo. He mentioned it in passing in interviews years later, and most audiences who saw the film had no idea they were watching the director's children. Joe reaches for the camera, and Catherine pulls it back and calls for help. Melanie steps into frame beside her. Wyler shoots the scene and moves on. Family business. Fact 8. Hepburn's Pixie haircut in the film was real, not a wig, and she kept it afterward. Princess Anne gets her long hair cut short in a barbershop on Via della Stamperia near the Trevi Fountain. Anne sits in the barber's chair, and the long hair falls away. She looks at herself in the mirror and grins. That was not a wig being removed. The production actually cut Hepburn's hair. She went into the film with long hair and left it with the pixie cut that became one of the most copied looks of the decade. The haircut was designed by costume designer Edith Head in collaboration with the production. Head won the Oscar for Best Costume Design for the film. The haircut itself influenced women's fashion across the 1950s more than almost anything else that appeared on screen that year. Fact 7. The Vespa sequence used real Roman traffic, and Vespa sales exploded because of it. Wyler used minimal crew interference for street sequences, filming in public with actual Roman traffic reacting naturally to a Vespa doing things Vespas normally do not do. Anne throws her arms out as they race past the Vittorio Emanuele monument. Joe leans into the turns and she grips tighter. The city moves around them because it was actually moving. Within a year of the film's release, Vespa sales had surged across Europe and the United States. Joe Bradley was the best advertisement the company never paid for. Fact 6. Hepburn could not cry on cue for the farewell scene, and Wyler had to find another way. At the end of the film, Princess Anne must say goodbye to Joe at the press conference. She knows she will never see him again. She knows he knows who she is. The scene required tears. Hepburn, still relatively inexperienced on film at that point, could not cry on cue when the moment came. Wyler did not push her. He adjusted the staging so that Anne's emotions were communicated through restraint rather than visible tears. Anne shakes Joe's hand and speaks carefully. Joe stands still and says almost nothing. The goodbye happens in what is not said, in the pressure of that handshake, in the way Anne straightens and turns away. The inability to cry produced a more devastating scene than crying would have. Fact 5. Joe gives up the story. Wyler never lets him explain why. Irving hands Anne the photographs at the end. Anne walks away with them. Joe stays behind in the empty hall. He does not write the exclusive he spent the whole film chasing. He simply leaves. Wyler stripped all the explanatory material from the script. Joe walks down the corridor alone with no dialogue, no confession, no justification. His footsteps echo. Wyler trusted the audience to understand. Joe already made his decision before he left the room. The film just refuses to point at it. Fact 4. The Oscar for Best Writing went to the wrong man and stayed there for nearly 40 years. When Roman Holiday won the Academy Award for Best Writing at the 1954 ceremony, Ian McClellan Hunter walked up and accepted the statue. He sent the $50,000 prize money to Dalton Trumbo in Mexico. The Academy did not correct its records until 1992, 38 years later, and 16 years after Trumbo's death. The Writers Guild formally restored Trumbo's name to the film's credits in 2011, 58 years after release. The corrected credit appeared for the first time on the 2003 DVD. For the first 5 decades of its life, the most beloved romantic comedy in Hollywood carried the wrong name on the only award that mattered. Fact 3. Peck met his future wife on the same streets he filmed the movie and married her 2 years later. Gregory Peck arrived in Rome privately depressed. His marriage to his first wife was ending. Shortly before filming began, a young French journalist named Véronique Pisani interviewed him for a Parisian publication. They began seeing each other during the production. Joe Bradley falls for a woman he cannot keep. Gregory Peck met the woman he kept for the rest of his life on the same streets. He and Véronique married in 1955 and were together until his death in 2003. Fact 2. A sequel was planned in the 1970s. Both Peck and Hepburn were approached. Neither said yes. After Roman Holiday's enormous success, Paramount eventually began developing a follow-up. In the 1970s, both Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn were contacted about returning. The idea was discussed. Neither of them committed to it. The project was never made. Anne walks back into the palace at the end of Roman Holiday, and the doors close behind her. Joe walks alone down the marble corridor. The film's ending is final precisely because nothing is resolved. A sequel would have required reopening something the film spent its entire runtime closing. Peck and Hepburn understood that. They said no separately, and the sequel died quietly. Fact 1. The original script had a completely different ending that the studio buried for over 70 years. The ending audiences know is Joe at the press conference handing over the photos, Anne shaking his hand, Joe walking away alone. That is not the ending Dalton Trumbo wrote. In Trumbo's original script, Joe does not destroy the story. He publishes it. Princess Anne's day in Rome becomes front-page news. She is exposed. Joe gets his exclusive. The film was then supposed to end on Anne reading the article, alone in the palace, understanding that the man she loved chose the story over her. That version of the ending was considered during early development and rejected by the studio as too bleak for a 1950s romantic comedy. It was replaced with the version Wyler filmed, in which Joe stays silent and Anne escapes with her privacy intact. The original ending, in which Joe publishes and Anne is betrayed, was buried. Trumbo wrote it from exile in Mexico City, unable to put his name on it. The studio replaced it with something audiences could go home feeling good about. For over 70 years, that darker version of the story stayed in the script drafts and out of the film. Now you know it existed. Roman Holiday, 1953. 3 directors. A script from a man in hiding. A performance caught on camera before the actress knew she was being filmed, and an ending the studio decided the world was not ready for. If something here surprised you, leave a comment. Subscribe for more every week. We will see you there.